Hello and welcome to VivaFest Presents Silicon Valley Women in the Media, a taped conversation with leading Silicon Valley media professionals on career, family, and the journey to leadership. My name is Eileen Ponce from Telemundo TV in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm your host for this community conversation. With me today are Mónica Amador, publisher and co-owner of El Observador newspaper, Linda Castillo, publisher of ModernLatina.com, Suzanne St. John Crane, Executive Director, Create TV, Isabel Duran, founder of Latinas Contra Cáncer, Claudia Estrada, President and General Manager, Estrella TV and Mundo Fox. Thanks to all of you for joining us today. Susan, we'll start with you. Sure. Now, I have to tell you that partnering with VivaFest and this wonderful program, it's a fabulous thing that Creative TV is doing. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. That's what we do.
Thank you.
We play well with others.
Suzanne, so tell us, how did we all get here? Each of us has experienced a unique journey to success and a responsibility in your current role. Did you choose this career?
That's a really good question. As I was looking at that question, I was kind of think back, okay, where was I when I was 20 plus years ago and choosing a career? I was actually going to go into theater. So I was doing theater and I loved being on stage and I loved, I think, having a voice, which definitely speaks to the career path that I chose. So loved performing, loved storytelling. And then when I went to college, somebody put a video camera in my hand and it was like this moment, one of those moments that you remember, right, in your career where it's like life-changing. I don't need to be in front of the camera anymore. I love being behind the camera. I love controlling how the story is told and being a visual storyteller. So, saved up enough money to buy my $1,200 VHS camera.
Right.
And away I went. So didn't know this was. I would sometimes watch people on the news doing their as growing up and thinking, oh, maybe I'll be a newscaster because I really like to perform. But I did not see community media, community television in my future until I hit college and had that moment.
Newscasting is not a profession. It is an evolution of one's profession. I chose journalism, not newscasting, and I chose it when I was 14. I decided I wanted to be a foreign correspondent. And that all evolved from reading. I love to read. I love the adventures that one could do, the travel one could do, the people that one could meet. I said, that sounds like an interesting thing to do. And somehow or another, I learned this thing called journalism, right? And foreign correspondence. So I signed right up to that idea and said, I can be rich and famous and travel the world. See? Right. That was supposed to be actually supposed to be an actress, not a journalist. But
you didn't get the memo.
But it gave me the opportunity. I mean, it set my path for me to use what I thought were my interests and allow me to start journalism. So I went straight into college, into print journalism. I took print journalism, but when I went after college, I went back to Columbia University and chose TV to do some training because I figured it suited my personality.
Right.
And because I started in 1970, I also believed that television was more important, particularly for Latinos, to be in front of a camera where one could be seen instead of newsprint where one had, maybe if I was lucky, a byline in the women's pages or writing obits.
Exactly.
And I wanted to move quickly because I felt I not only wanted to be this great famous journalist, but I needed to represent the whole community and change stereotypes. And so I needed to do it in a box where everybody was watching, where everybody had their attention. And so that's how I ended up in broadcast journalism for 42 years.
Congratulations, amazing. That's phenomenal, phenomenal. And I imagine me, when I turn on the television and I see a Hispanic name on TV as an anchor, Isabel Duran, I want to be that person. I'm sure other young Latina women also want to be that person. One day they will, and you as a mentor, they will follow your footsteps.
Well, I think over the years, I mean, obviously Latinos in television have evolved because when I started there was this much Spanish language television news. So now we have all of these competing interests. Look at here, Miss Mundo Fox.
That's right.
Well, I started in print.
You started in print?
I started in print in Colombia at the El Tiempo, which is the largest newspaper in Colombia. And I never thought that this is like a media career. I thought this is a business career. Never thought that I'm going to be in media all the time. I get here to the States and then studied Univision, Telemundo, and did all until I found the mission in media, which is not, the business is a part, it's my responsibility and I'm accounted for that. But the mission is what attracts me the most, and is, as a Latina, how we can help our community here, how we can fight for our better position in the United States through education, through opportunities. So how is that all together we're gonna work and show the real Latino world? That is the mission that it really intrigues me, and I adore. I cannot imagine myself doing something different than what I'm doing right now.
Right, right. And tell us, Linda, what about yourself?
Well, I think that my mission, you know, with Modern Latina is to really get that Latina voice and perspective out there. I came into creating Modern Latina because I was studying mass communications at San Jose State University, and I really recognized there wasn't a lot of Latina voice and perspectives out there in the traditional media stream. So at that point, I decided that I'm going to create that, and the internet actually has leveled the playing field to let smaller publishers get in the game. And at that point, Modern Latina started putting positive stories, Latinas that are making a difference in the community. It's a resource for Latinas to go to. And it's evolved. At first, I was a one-woman show, and now I have a wonderful team of contributing writers. So
When did you start?
2005.
See, and isn't that fascinating? We're in
fascinating.
2013, and she's talking about the fact that there's still this big vacuum for the Latino voice.
Right.
And I know that you've been, El Observador has been
since
around like
1980.
forever
Wow.
in many ways, and yet here we are with this,
Still struggling.
this struggling
Still,
to
it's
have
still
a
a
voice.
struggle.
And
But
to
there's
Right.
a perception of that.
Yeah.
That's what's interesting too, I
yes,
think.
the
given-
perception is almost as strong as the gap itself.
Right.
Yeah.
So true. So in 1980, El Observador existed because of two women who saw a gap in print for the Latinos in both English and Spanish. They started it, and in 5 years, it didn't work because they were not Hispanic, and they really didn't understand the market. And at that time, I had not ever thought I was going to go into media. That I was going to be an artist, and
We're also
Right.
farmers.
Right.
Well, there's artistry
You
in
know,
print,
true,
in
because I
media.
became
Yeah.
a graphic artist for the phone company. And so with that background of graphic art in the newspaper business, what happened was when Hilbert purchased the paper in 85, 86, he purchased it, he said, I don't really know what I'm doing. At that time, I had a program that was recruiting men and women for the construction industry, for the non-traditional trades. And so El Observador actually covered my story about being in non-traditional field, bringing women and men into the plumbers and operating engineers and electricians and all that. So that was my first introduction to El Observador newspaper. And when Hilbert purchased it, he goes, I really don't know what I'm doing. I said, well, I have successfully recruited men and women into the construction industry. And if you look, at one time there were no Hispanics in the trades. You could go on any job site and you would not see a dark brown face at all. And so when I went on, they'd look at me like, rah!
Who is this woman?
But
What
it
is
was
she doing?
getting them to understand, you know, give people an opportunity and they will do a really good job. They'll be true to they really will be your best employee, and they were.
So you were introducing cultural competence back in the day when it didn't even have a name.
Back in those days.
right, right.
Wow.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing. That's the thing of the
Just breaking
evolution
ground,
of media
breaking
for
ground,
Latinos. You know,
always.
back in 1970, on mainstream television, there were Latinos calling us sellouts for working in mainstream television. So I said, well, you know, if you're going to have a voice, you have to sit at the table. I said, besides, I don't speak Spanish well enough to work in Spanish language television. Not that it existed very much. So anyway, you know, this is the evolution of the work we're doing.
It's interesting too, just to see the different paths that we've all sort of taken, and I think that, you know, with community media, again, I had no idea I was heading there, but I didn't even know it existed. I didn't know what community media was.
Right.
And now, you know, I was talking to a gentleman who is a sort of a design engineer, and I was describing to him what we do here. I said, we're not PBS, we're not a broadcast station, but we are a community media station. You know, like Wayne's World, you know, that's like, and he said, and I was sort of discounting it, and he goes, Suzanne, don't discount that. Because DIY is what is absolutely hot right now. And now, and he's right, because when the internet came about, you know, our industry thought, oh, it's going to be destroyed. You know, community, we don't need us anymore. There's YouTube and little cameras on our phones. It's become more popular because more people know the language and understand the power. So who knew? I mean, just hearing everybody's sort of story of how you know, our careers have evolved and how technology has evolved and how it's really impacted our decisions, I think is interesting.
But one of the things you probably also discovered is community does not mean the same thing to all people. And therefore it's not a monolith. Well, neither is the Latino community a monolithic group with one belief system, one language even. You know, sometimes I like to describe the Latino community as some of us eat salsa and some of us dance salsa. So that's what newsprint, the power of having a media voice can do. It is showing us in all, as you talked about, all of our ways of living, believing, our cultures, our history, et cetera, et cetera.
The power and the responsibility. That's what I like the most, because we have to be responsible. Having this opportunity that we have to be women and Latinas in media is a big responsibility. We have in our hands a big possibility of representing our community in the country, and that is something that we need to pay attention and do better every day.
Absolutely, and we are also mentors to the young generation that also want to join and be part of this media and look up to us, look up to all of us, and want to be us one day. And so definitely it's a good thing. It's a good thing that we're here today having this wonderful conversation, right, Isabel?
Yeah, and I was going to pick up on what she was talking about in terms of responsibility, because I think that how we define what good journalism is really going through also an evolution. And I don't like the direction it's going. It's unfortunate, because if this is what we're modeling for our younger community, our kids, they're learning badly. They're not going to be good journalists in the future unless we teach them what that really means. So there you go. You've got an opportunity to build those great good journalists, you know, demanding and so on. I mean, I like the fact that people recognize that's still very much a part of who and what we are. It's responsibility to the public.
Now, mentoring that you mentioned, mentoring, I think that is one of the most important things in any career. Not just media, in any career. And with the responsibility that we have, mentoring is very important. I had, to me, the best two mentors, one Anglo, one Latino, in media, both. And they gave me a lot of tough love, but they showed me a lot of how be accountable and how be proud and how be responsible and how feel very proud of what we are every day, no matter what. I remember that I was very, very scared even to think about talking in front of people and say, with this accent, they don't know what I'm talking about. And they say, Claudia, when you're representing what you love and you're doing with your heart, and you're talking about what you know in front of the people that you should be, you know, the accent is the last thing that they're going to notice. So, and that's what I did, and I became completely fearless, and now I cannot stop talking.
Now, Linda, we're going to start with you with the following question. Now, we all know the critical roles mentors play. Who was your critical mentor, and what did that person give you, advised you, guide you to be part of the career that you are now in, which is modernlatina.com?
The person that I have considered my mentor is Lori Scolari, and I actually worked with her back when I was at San Jose State University. She was the director of the College Readiness Program, and for me it was so important to see a Latina in a leadership position, and she took me under her wings at that time and gave me a lot of responsibility, considering I was just working part-time in that position. And she basically helped me project management, time management, communication. She gave me a lot of skills and feedback. And one of the greatest things is that she still is my mentor, and over the years, and I've been able to go back to her with career questions that I might have. She's been professional and personal references for me. When opportunities come up, she'll throw leads my way and vice versa. So I think that's one of the most important thing about when you have a mentor is continuing that relationship throughout your career.
Definitely. Do you agree, Suzanne?
You know, it's interesting as you're talking. I mean, I'm just realizing that over the last, I would say, 5-6 years, I've had the opportunity to start becoming a mentor. I mean, I think I've done it in smaller ways, right? You know, we have interns at the different stations I've worked at where you develop relationships and you encourage people along. But just in the last, I would say, 5 or 6 years, I've had an opportunity in particular with a couple of folks to you know, I realize, you kind of realize you're at that point in your career, you go, oh, yeah, I really want to help these two women in particular who have wanted to sort of expand their careers and you know, give them what I was given, right?
Right.
So, you know, my mentor in this business was, and I can remember again, the defining moment in my career was when I was offered a job of executive director of a station in Gilroy, and I was terrified. I thought, oh God, you know, and everyone else saw, like, Suzanne, you need to go
can
do
do
this,
it.
right? It's time.
do it.
Come on,
It's
push the
time.
birdie out of the nest, right? It's time to do this. But I was really afraid, and so called a woman who's running a station in Santa Rosa who was just a powerhouse, always thinking outside the box, background in PBS, you know, super uber confident, great team builder. And she, you know, I call her, so I'm kind of scared. Mine was a Lori too. I'm kind of scared, Lori, and she says, she goes, I want you to come up, and I'm going to take you out to lunch, and we're going to talk. And I went up there, and she said, we sit down to lunch, and she goes, you're going to take this job? And here's why. And she goes off with the reason that she goes, now I'm going to take you back to my station, and we're going to sit at a staff meeting. And she literally had me as a guest at her staff meeting. We went around the room, and each of them kind of gave me these words of encouragement. And I thought, God, what a beautiful thing to do, to take the time to do that for me.
Absolutely.
And words of encouragement, words of advice, you know. And so I would have to say that, I mean, Lori Cervello is her name, and she runs the huge station now up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And thanks to Facebook, I'm able to still stay in touch with her. And so, you know, that was a huge defining moment, and I'm proud and grateful to be able to now take the example she set and be able to mentor other women coming up in community media.
Right, right. Monica, your mentor?
You know, I think about that too. I was not as fortunate as either one of you to have a mentor who would take me under their wing, because I started in graphic arts, and I was kind of a loner out there as a graphic artist in the phone company. We kind of were left alone to just do our artwork. And then when I went into the construction industry, they kind of just said, start an office over there, and I just started an office. I just did what I had to do to make it work. And then when I went to the paper, there was no one there to help us get started. So I just had to start from the ground and work my way up to get this thing going and make it successful. So for me, I've never really had a person that said, let me put you under my wing and help you. It's like you get out there and you start swimming and swim as hard as you can. And that's what I've been doing all my life, is doggy paddling as fast as I can to get going. But now I see how important it is to mentor our interns. Damien Trujillo was one of our interns at He just...
You might mention that Damien Trujillo is a reporter at NBC.
Yes, and he started with writing the articles, you know, and making sure it was substantiated and it was a solid piece. That
What year was that?
Oh gosh. It was in the 80s.
In the 80s. That's okay.
You know, I think it's really fascinating because every time this question comes up, I don't particularly like it, because I do have to go through the Rolodex and say, who the hell was my mentor? Excuse the French. Because when I started in television in 1970, first of all, there were very few women in television. And the men were betting that we would fail. So obviously there weren't those who really wanted to mentor us. I remembered, in fact, when I was my first job was in Los Angeles in 1970, and there was a woman who'd been in radio for quite a number of years, like 22 years, and she came over to television. So she was a phenomena in her own right. And I said, oh goody, a woman I can talk to, you know, she'll help me. I'm 23 years old, I'm just out of school, and I'm in the major CBS station in the country, so, oh wow. And she totally ignored me. When I was a writer, I was in the writer pod, and she would look at my stuff and constantly over my shoulder and be not very friendly. And I remember feeling that, as a result, I would be different. I would try to mentor younger people, particularly women, and not do that. But in those days, there wasn't the thing called mentors. Women didn't know about mentors. There were no networks. And so, like Monica was talking about, you learn these things on your own.
Right.
You became sort of an independent operator, so that you didn't think you needed mentors. But what you did do, if you were smart, was you learned. You watched, and you watched people who were smart, or they seemed to do their job well, and you learned by watching.
Exactly.
So there's a whole new concept called mentorship, I think, in the last decade that women have been taught about. But many women before that had to sort of swim on their own and learn that, and hopefully some ways turned around and helped pull somebody else up.
Oh, that's right.
But I think we were even discussing that issue here today, that we don't always see that happen in the Latino community and the Latina community as much as we should be seeing it, where we're actually helping pull someone else and help them prepare.
Right.
You know.
No,
What I learned about my two mentors that I mentioned in the other segment, there were more values, more than specific activities. So what Larry Ward, that is one of my mentors, he was the president of NBC5 in Chicago, you know him. And what I learned from him is the respect that that man has for the Hispanic community. I never have seen an American, when he's Irish, Italian, American, to be so convinced and so passionate and so respectful and so into this community that he had the entire community in Chicago, the Hispanic community in Chicago, in his hands. So I learned that. I said, if he can do that, and he's a gringo, and he can take everybody and have everybody in love with him, why is that we cannot do? I cannot do the same thing, doing what is right to do with the Anglo or the American community, and showing and representing the community. And then what I learned from Ibra Morales, which is the, you know Ibra Morales, he was the Telemundo president for a long time. And he has a heavier accent than mine, very successful man, and he is so proud of being Latino. And he grew up in the American culture, but so proud of being Latino. So I learned two things: being respectful and being proud of what we do every day. That was my biggest lesson, and that's what I apply every day and trying to mentor other people.
So mentorship has different definitions,
right?
And everybody has different ways of learning. So mentorship in and of itself can sometimes put people in a box, and then they walk around feeling bad because they didn't have a mentor. Oh my God, something's wrong with me. I don't have a mentor. So I think it's really about new ways of learning that we need to teach our younger women. And a lot of times I talk about it as leadership. What are your leadership skills? What do you see as a leader? Your definition of leader may not be somebody else's. That doesn't mean you don't have those capacities.
Right.
So it really is, sometimes the conversation locks us in instead of freeing us to learn. You know, I can't move forward if I don't have a mentor. Well, heck, you can do anything you want to do.
Exactly.
Seek one out.
Exactly.
Seek one out. I mean, there's so many opportunities.
If you think someone there is smart enough to guide you.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, I have to tell you that the mentor that I've had, and I still have, she was great. She was a great teacher, always supported me, always guided me in those situations, those moments where I don't think I can do this job. I don't think I can move on and be on camera, whereas before I was behind camera, or it was just a voiceover, TV, radio voiceovers. And she says, no, you can go on camera. Yeah. You can do it. And I thought, oh my goodness. And I have to tell you that when I am in front of a camera, it feels so comfortable to me. However, when I am in front of public, it just has a different feeling, and other folks have the opposite feeling, right? They can speak very well in front of the public, but in front of a camera, they can't. Our internship that we currently have at the TV station, we have this one gal that started, and as an intern, volunteered, no pay, right? Internship is no pay.
Dues.
Earning her stripes.
Exactly. Well, now I have to tell you, she is our marketing manager. And that just tells you, you know, she wanted to learn. She wanted to be part of the media. And there she is. You know, and I can definitely see bigger, larger things for her. And
you know, it's interesting too, it's about what you're saying with, you know, when you started, it felt competitive. Like this woman was obviously threatened by you. Okay,
Yeah, and
right?
she's 20
That's
years older,
what it
right?
was.
At the top of
So
the
and they feel
there's
that
this
way, yes.
cutthroat sort of, and I think, you know, you read Sandberg's book and other books about this. It's did we inherit that world or did we create it as women? And I think it's an interesting conversation to be had. I mean, you know, we've all read these sorts of books before, and I know that, I mean, the decision I've sort of made is, you know, I'm a competitive person, right? And I feel that competitive spirit, but if we're bringing up other people, if we're pulling them up to have the same skills and opportunities and rights, I feel good about myself when I do that, and it's good for my industry, right?
Absolutely.
I get a 30-minute phone call every Friday at 10 o'clock with a woman who was a volunteer at a station that I worked at, I don't know, 15 years ago. And she took on the first job as executive director at a small station in Long Beach. And she says, I've never done this before, Suzanne. And I'm like, I've been there. I said, let's just talk every week. Let's just check in. 20-minute, 30-minute check-in on Fridays. And she calls with her, you know, freaking out about vendors or what equipment do I buy or this HR problem or whatever. And, you know, I hear myself giving advice and and I'm thinking, this was me, right? This was me. So I feel better. My industry's benefiting. It's a win.
Yeah,
it's
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. And to that note, it's so important to also continue mentoring interns. Right? Definitely guiding them, because you never know. This business is extremely small. Everyone knows everyone. You, Claudia, mentioned Ibra Morales, right? And yes, absolutely, Ibra Morales. You mentioned somebody else that
I didn't mention anybody. I have nobody to mention.
You're on your own.
I am bereft. I will go to my grave with no mentor.
No. Now, Isabel, tell us about the special event that's taking place this weekend for all our viewers.
Oh, okay. We have a half a minute. Well, one of the things that I have learned is leadership, and one of the things that I did was make lemons out of lemonade, or what is it? Lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah.
You know that. And so when I was diagnosed with cancer, I turned around and created an agency. I knew nothing about business plans, nothing about investments, but I had, one, ganas, and two, I had success. I was a successful journalist. I knew many things by observing, by participating, and by doing. So I started Latinas Contra Cancer, and it's almost 10 years old, and every year we do a Mother's Day walk against cancer. So we're going to be having one, we have one every May on Mother's Day here in San Jose. And it starts at 9 in the morning, so if anybody wants to join us, come at 8 o'clock. We'll start with Zumba, get you warmed up, and then we walk down the street.
Where
and
exactly?
You know what?
Downtown San Jose?
It started at the plaza here at City Hall. But let me tell you, this is not about a walk. This is about community coming together to acknowledge deadly disease, but there are a lot of survivors, to acknowledge something that frightens many of our community, and to say we are in this together. Yep. And so this is why we do this walk. It isn't even about the 2 miles.
And to your point too, Isabel, I mean, you lead with passion, right? And I think that comes back to what we were talking about earlier is, you know, I didn't know how to write a business plan. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm a journalist. What am I doing? But you use that and you use your passion and look at where you are.
And you use your smarts. You investigate. You ain't got Google.
Yeah.
Right.
Research anything you can find it.
There you go. Thank God.
Absolutely.
Thank God there's Google.
In this segment, we'll discuss both myths and the reality of the glass ceiling. Is there a glass ceiling? How clear and difficult of a barrier is it? Is it more of a lead ceiling? What are some of the strategies our guests have to use to break through? Is hard work good enough?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
I think so.
I think so. I mean, it depends on the industry you choose. And yes, there are ceilings, but as long as that's all you think about, you'll never move forward.
That's right.
I think that, you know, you have to go sideways to go up. Sometimes you have to strategize. This is what I like to tell young women today. Don't worry about this and this and this. Figure out what your strategy is. How are you going to get there? What are you going to give up to get there? And what do you have to do? I mean, you know, a lot of times they always ask that question, the other one that bugs me all the time.
Which is?
Which is, can women have it all? And I say, get over it. Get over it, you know, because if you decide what your path is, you will have to make sacrifice.
Absolutely.
And so what will those steps be, and what sacrifices are you willing to make? And then when they happen, you're not so surprised. Oh my God, I didn't expect this to happen to me. You know, let's be real.
And I think having
strategic.
Conversations about this topic with people who are at very different backgrounds, different stages of careers and decisions that we've made. I mean, that's rich information for young women to really digest and help, you know, sort of feed their decisions moving forward. We were talking sort of on the break, right? I've got 2 girls. I've got an 8-year-old and soon to be 6-year-old, and I had, you know, in a 10-year span, it was, you know, my career was starting to take off, and then I got pregnant right when I started a new TV station, and then this, you know, I had a 1-year-old when I was offered the job to start Create TV, and brutal, tough, you know, and so, you know, you really have sort of a come to Jesus meeting with yourself, like, what am I willing to sacrifice? Am I, you know, and I know personally, the first 6 months after my second daughter was born were very difficult. I had 5 months of maternity leave, thank God, but I was pulling my hair out. So this isn't when you know, you have that guilty feeling of, I'm a mom, I should want to stay home. I'm a mom, I should want to stay home. How do I make it so I can stay home? Wasn't meant to be. Wasn't meant to be. I got this job, and I had a very wise friend of mine who said, happy mom means happy baby. Suzanne. You got to be happy.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So don't follow the mold. Don't follow that. Follow what is meant for you as an individual.
Right.
I think is so. And to the question, I mean, yes, working hard, and not buying into old stereotypes. You know, I think you've got to set your path and your direction and open yourself up to opportunities that are there.
I have to disagree that hard work is enough. I think that education is very important. And that is the message since the moment I grew up in a family that we didn't have money, but we all had the best education. And that is why I think I'm sitting here. Because I came when I was 35 years old to the country without one word in English. And I was brave enough to put my backpack and go to school and start a career, because I was successful in Colombia, but it doesn't count when you come here.
Right. And being that you
what
had
it
2 children
counts,
already,
absolutely,
right?
with 2 kids, single mom at that point because I was divorced, and I came here and I said, okay, working hard, that's what I have done all my life. I need to increase my education. And that's what I did, and that's the message that I would love to send to all the kids and the community here. Education, education, education. When we have the education, then you're fearless. You can go anyway. I remember a dear friend of mine. I said, Claudia, are you crazy? You're gonna leave all what you have here, and this is in Colombia. Like for her was, okay, you have everything here, and you're gonna start all over again. There, I said, I am gonna do that because I'm gonna give my kids better opportunities, and I'm gonna go and work for something that I believe in. And I wasn't very. The fear that I didn't have is because my education is, I think that if I have this with me, I put it in my backpack, y vámonos. And that's what I did. And it took me 20 years to get to this point, but I did it again, all over again, starting, and I cannot be like more like.
I don't think there's anybody here who wouldn't agree that education is
totally
key.
agree.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I mean, to me, education is liberation.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. You have to be educated. You have to understand how to play the game.
Right.
All of that comes from education.
Absolutely. Knowledge of power.
But you know,
And hard work.
And then you put in the hard work. But then you have to do hard work to get educated. I mean, it isn't the walk in the park.
Yeah.
Right.
So hard work obviously goes with the territory. But absolutely, I think education is number one. But it also depends on the particular venue that you work in, the industry you work in. I mean, you work as a publisher, so you can create your own ceilings.
You have to know your passion, because once you have the knowledge, once you have the hard work, you need to know your own passion. What is it that makes you happy?
Commitment.
And then once you have that passion, once you know your goal, your desire, nothing can stop you. You, like you say, you go left, right, whatever it takes, but you know your goal and you're heading for it, and nothing is going to stop you. Whether there isn't a ceiling at all when you have a goal.
You know what, too, with your sort of world, with Modern Latina and with sort of in community media, and I think it's part of my story a little bit too, is that you don't wait for somebody to tell you, okay, you have permission now to move up. You create those opportunities. Yes. You create those opportunities, absolutely, right? Yeah. When I started in community media, I walked into the first station I was at that I realized I had been on a show there when I was 13, and I went, oh God, I've been here before. And they still have the tape, but we won't go there. So anyway, but I walked in there and I went, people here doing their own television shows? I want to do that. And I thought, I'm not going to wait for somebody to give me permission. I'm just going to start doing it. And I did. And that was 21 years ago. So that sounds a little bit like your story.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely think that, you know, you have to, if you're not getting the opportunities, you're raising your hand for those assignments, those projects at the organization you're at, find them elsewhere. You know, be a board member, you know, volunteer. It's more hard work because then you're working your full-time job, but then you're doing your outside passion and building the skills that you want to that you need to take you to the next level.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And also, I don't know if I'm gonna be like out of track a little bit, but communicating, talking about what we're doing, communicating the opportunities to the community is the most important thing. And I'll give you an example, and because I'm a mom, I'm very proud of that. My son graduated in Yale University with full scholarship, and I could, if somebody would have asked anyone in Colombia 20 years ago, 25 years ago, you think that Claudia is going to have this kid 2 years old and she's going to go to the States and he's going to graduate in Yale, they would be laughing at me in my face. And that's what he did, and it was all because he was a good Latino, because the opportunities in this country is opening to many, but there's not enough communication. So I would say education and communication of the opportunity and passion and commitment is those values. If we have that as a Latinos, we have them and we grew up with them. If we keep them repeating in front of our community, they're gonna keep.
Well, I think there's no single answer. Everybody has to understand who they are and what they are. You know, for instance, she was pregnant and moving into, her struggle was, you know, can I stay at home and be a good mom, or should I go off and do this thing that I love?
Right.
Well, when I was in television, you made the decision either to get pregnant or to be a journalist. You couldn't do both because they didn't let you come back.
Right.
And there were no laws that said that stations could do that to you. So over the decades, things have changed and created different opportunities for women, which was what the women's movement was all about, to create opportunity. Now Latinos and Latinas are trying to create their opportunities in different ways, you know, educate that community so it can be a responsive, engaged community as part of the total. But you know, things have changed over time. You have to decide where you fit. Monica mentioned it. Who you are, what you want to do you have the ganas to do it? Do you have the skill sets and the education to do it? Then how do you do it? Who can I ask? Who are the experts? You know, who can lead me in that direction because they see my passion and they will help me get there.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
And I have to say too, though, I mean, we were talking about it a little bit before in the beginning of Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In. She tells this story, which I was just howling out loud because I so related. I was working at Gavilan Community College, and you know, the parking lot way low. You walk up this 90-degree heat, walk up this, you know, into my building. 8 months pregnant, you know, waddling my way up there, working till the bitter end. Her story is, you know, she was parking in the North 40 in Google parking lot because it had they'd grown so much, had so many more employees, and she was about 8 months pregnant, and she had to run to the meeting to get there on time. And you know, she had morning sickness the entire pregnancy, so she was just feeling awful, horrible. Gets in there, and it was her husband that had to point out to her, "Why don't you guys, like at Yahoo, why don't you have expectant mother parking?" And at that moment, she was asking herself, like, why didn't I think of this? And I think it's important, while we have all of these immense opportunities and we have, you know, educational opportunities and we're hard workers, we can't lose sight of the fact that it's okay to stand up for ourselves too, and it's okay to ask for what you need and ask for what you want. And I mean, even, you know, the younger generation coming up, you know, it's still a predominant, you know, male workforce, right? When you know, so I think we
in leadership,
exactly. So I think that we need to be mindful of that, and don't be afraid to ask for what you need and want. There's still statistics about women often, you know, women don't go in and ask for raises. Men are more prone to do that, and we tend to lay back a bit more and have to justify nervously, right? And shouldn't be that way. We got to stand up for ourselves.
Interestingly enough, though, and I'm sure there's some new research that's coming out about this, the younger generation has an expectation that, what do you mean? I deserve this. No, it's mine. Serve it up. It's done.
There is that.
They are forgetting that there is a work ethic, and that there is, and that they need to prove themselves. There is this sort of royal expectation that, well, no, I'm this great young being. Come on, you know.
Yeah,
I discovered this when I was teaching journalists. I was doing a little bit of attempts, and I discovered I am not a teacher because I'd like to kill a lot of them, you know? Because it was more about, well, how do I be on TV? Not, how do I become a good journalist?
Yep.
Right.
9 out of 10.
Right.
And then this expectation that they could just walk into a station and I'm here.
Yes.
And when I worked with some of these young women on my weekend show, they used to drive me crazy because they were not attempting to be good journalists. They were like putting widgets, you know, where do I put the widget? Okay, I now know how to put the widget, not asking the right good journalism questions. And I said, if this is the breed of young journalists that they're coming out of college,
Right.
I'm concerned.
We need an Isabel Duran boot camp.
Yes.
I agree. The new generation has no patience, and they want the results immediately.
Exactly.
That's the big enemy of the new generation.
Exactly.
They need to be patient. They need to
Yes.
work hard. They need to
Learn.
learn and have the experience. But they want, okay, this is for me, what's next? That they get bored so easy.
I think it's a generation too of just everything's instant. Everything, you know. I mean, my 8-year-old's in the car and we're listening to the radio, and she says, "Play that again." I'm like, honey, it's live. We're listening to the radio. You know, you're actually gonna have to, or we're watching a football game and they will speed it up. No, honey, it's live. This is real. So, you know, why can't I have this right now?
Fast.
Yeah.
You have modernlatina.com. What are you getting back from younger Latinas or your audience? How are they thinking? And are they thinking differently than maybe even a decade ago?
Well, I definitely think it's different. I think that the speed of information, they want, you know, they can access things quickly. I think that, well, for me, with Modern Latina, video is going. I mean, I think that in general, you have to constantly be changing with media and being into what technology is going to bring. I think technology is huge. Now it's all about the Facebook applications and.
So you're saying that to keep their attention, you have to keep entertaining them with new technology
yes.
and toys.
So that's going to be a good.
But are they being informed?
Well, I think that you have to
good
change the
question.
way you're informing the audience.
You know,
because of the,
I asked a brain specialist. I did a radio interview, and I asked these brain specialists, this young man in particular, who was looking at the impacts of tweeting and Facebook and internet use and all of this on long-term memory. And he said that is yet to be told because we've got these new generations whose whole lives were I saw my grandson, you know, always like that. Look up and talk to me. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
What are their long-term memories going to be like when they learn in bytes and bits?
That's right.
How will they have context? Will they have these? Can they talk about 40 years ago when I was a child? What will they be talking about? What will they be remembering? And how would it ultimately impact their health? Because, you know, we're talking about Alzheimer's, dementia, so on and so forth, and all of the antidotes to those are using your mind.
That's right.
And if they don't know how to use their minds well, by long-term, you know, participating, socializing, and learning.
And using our mind is what it keeps us young. So I don't know for the old days, for this generation, you're absolutely right. They cannot entertain their minds because they're so consistent. But that's one of the challenges, and that's what we have to do.
Now, ladies, what advice would you give to your son, daughter, nephew, niece about a career in media? Would you advise them to do so?
If that was their passion, I would.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I've always said that as a parent. You know, I mean, I've said to both my daughters, whatever you want to do is great. I just want you to love what you do. Because I had parents that didn't. So you grow up with that and you think, my time's gonna count. I'm gonna choose something I love. And so I think you follow your passion, number one.
You know, I have actually a nephew who's an NBC correspondent now. And I never advised him because he never asked. But I found out I was his role model, he says.
Oh, wonderful.
So that was nice to know, but he just kind of up and announced he was going to journalism school. And so now he's a correspondent. His name is Miguel Almaguer, and he's very good.
Oh, yes.
Because not only is he cute, he's a little bit of a diva, but he is a reporter's reporter. He will go to New York and take writing lessons from the best so he can get better.
That's great.
That's my kind of journalist, because writing is so important to journalism. And so what I would advise, I don't care who it is who wants to go into media, to be a good journalist first. Because, and what is that? The journalist has a responsibility to one's community, to reflect how they feel, to show what is happening to them, to open up their minds to other people around them. That's the journalist's responsibility. And if you're unwilling to take it, and Claudia brought it up, if you're unwilling to accept that responsibility, it's like the doctor's oath, then don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah.
Right.
This is not about being TV stars or radio stars or print stars. It is about passion, about loving the word, the written word, about sharing story, about influencing change.
Right.
I mean, that is what it's about. And if that's not what you care about, then you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally
Don't
agree.
do it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Totally agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think with storytelling too, I mean, just we see folks come in to create TV that, you know, maybe news isn't necessarily, reporting isn't necessarily their thing, but storytelling is, and to have a real passion for that. I will say though, as an employer, one of the challenges that we've had is, you know, you get folks that come in who are in their, you know, their 20s and the interns or whatnot, and everybody's an editor. Everybody knows how to put special effects all over everything, but they don't know how to tell a story.
Right.
It's back to your point, right? It's writing, and it's communicating with your subject and being a rich storyteller that I feel like is a bit of a lost art. And maybe it's because we are in a soundbite age. There's no depth to sort of the media that we're reading. We're all about soundbites and headlines, and not about and 140 characters on Twitter.
Right.
We're not about reading deeper. So. That is a bit of a concern. You know, I would encourage anybody in, you know, younger folks in my life to dig deeper.
Right, and definitely, as you mentioned, Isabel, asking the right questions, right?
Of yourself.
Of yourself, exactly.
Yeah.
And
That's where you start your journalism, interviewing yourself.
yes, yes, absolutely, and always having a wonderful mentor. Always having a wonderful mentor. Now, you were talking to us, Monica, about the children, you know, with the iPad at a younger age.
My concern of the young person not having enough interaction with people that
parents.
with parents, moms, dads, and getting the core values from them. Just learning or just playing on a computer, you're not going to get all that, and knowing how to interact with each other. You need to know how to interact with people so you can hear those stories, so you can learn that if you're going to be a journalist, you need to make sure it's substantiated. It's got to have the truth behind it, and write it as well as you can write it and communicate it as best as you can. But it's going to be very important that they have that conversation with other people, the networking, to have those role models, all of it has to go together. So it's not one little thing, it's a lot of things that make that one person become the best they can be in this world.
Well, and it's a tool, right? I mean, I remember my parents saying this about television. Television's going to, you know, oh, it's taking over, and that's all our kids do now is watch television. Well, it's a tool, and if used properly, I think an iPad or an iPhone, I mean, there's schools now that have a BYOD policy, bring your own device. Bring your own device to school, bring it in the classroom, learn with it, embrace it, because it's a powerful tool. You know, I go into my daughter's classroom, and there's 10 computers that have got to be over 10 years old. And they have the big CRT, huge monitors. There's a kid in the class that does tech support.
Yes, I've actually heard about that.
He's 8.
Oh my God.
So what can we do to bring tools into the classroom? And frankly, you know, some of these tools terrify me too as a parent of, you know, 8, soon to be 9-year-old. I see what's coming, but I participate with her in this, and you know, so it's something that you as a parent, I think, have to embrace and educate yourself around, and what a powerful tool it can be if you're experiencing that together. Right?
Wonderful.
Good.
I was going to say because of the tools, but you have to have the curiosity first as a journalist.
Yeah.
So if you see a fire engine running down the street and you're not asking yourself, I wonder where that's going.
Right.
I wonder what's going on. Because now with new tools, then you can suddenly GPS things and find out what's going on, and do, what is that, Google Maps, and swoop down on smoke. And you can use tools, but you have to have the curiosity first. You have to want to know. And you have to not be afraid of history. You have to want to say, okay, where do I find out about this over the long term? Oh, well, I can just Google it now, as opposed to when I had to go and make calls and go through archives and try to find out answers. But you always, if you don't have the curiosity to know, then you probably don't belong in the business.
That desire.
That it's not a desire. It is you want to know.
You wanna know.
You're one of those kids when they said, "Why do you always ask why?"
Why? Why?
You know, you
Right.
talk all the time and you're always asking why. That's a good journalist.
Exactly.
I would say that both generations should learn from each other, because my son always is laughing at me, "Mommy, why is that you need to change to the new iPad, to the new iPhone?" He said, "Because I work in communication."
Right.
And you know, and I have the Twitter and the Facebook, and oh, Mommy, but why is that? He looking at me like, "Why is that you? This is like for young people." I said, "No, no, no. This is for people that are in the, and this is my business. This is my world.
Right.
So this is what I need to learn. You should learn a little. How about a good book? How about you do better research? How about you put a plan and we discuss it the old-fashioned way?" That combination is the perfect combination. I think that we should learn from each other.
Balance.
Absolutely.
Balance.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
The new generation with the experienced generation.
Exactly.
Right?
It's kind of like what you were saying too earlier about training, right?
Yeah, you can have mentors that are younger that are showing you about
Absolutely.
technology, and you know, you're giving them some exposure to your experience, and they're showing you how to access you know, technology. I mean, maybe you don't know how to use the iPad, I don't know, whatever it may be. So and I think that the reverse mentoring also works.
I think it's fabulous. I had a little 14-year-old come to my shop. She said she would help redo my website. 14 years old.
14 years old.
You know, and I just had some guy in Buenos Aires take all this time to I'll do all of it. I can do that, and I'll help you do that. I said, okay. So, but that's the beauty.
Yeah.
It really is finding, once again, her curiosity, her intention, her desire, her little knowledge, which was bigger than mine in terms of creating a website. She brought it, and I was thrilled to embrace her. You know, I didn't have her redo the website, of course. But she's coming back as an intern. But those are the kinds of kids you love to see.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's impressive to see how much they're capable of doing.
Absolutely.
Right? And then just moving buttons here or there on the computer and just making all these changes. And you're just, oh my goodness.
You know what too is having, we belong to the Downtown Rotary Club, and we had a job shadow day. So we had a couple of young students come in and shadow me for a day, and it's kind of funny because I tell them, I'm like, "You think you're going to be running a camera? So I'm going to teach you how to read a profit and loss statement. That's what we're You know, and I do. I sit them down. I don't care what business you're going into. You need to sit down and learn how to read the spreadsheet. You are going to use algebra ways you never knew. So, you know, in terms of mentoring young people or bringing young people in, I mean, that is a great way, you know, bringing your kids to work, you know, on certain days and letting them in and to kind of see what the real world is, a typical, you know, sort of day in the life. One of these young people that came in, you know, the end of our day, I said, "Well, you guys make videos. Why don't you show me some of the stuff you've done? We got a few more minutes." Like, okay, you know, just to be heard and validated, right? This guy shows me his video. I mean, it's phenomenal. Phenomenal. And he's through the Adobe Youth Voices program, which Create TV partners with. He had won an award, but I'm looking at his video and I'm very impressed. Oh, he's got 6,000 hits on it. I said, "Really?" I said, "How'd you do that?" He goes, "Well, I posted it here, and this is how I marketed it." I'm sitting here taking notes.
His business plan, you know.
Oh, you're kidding me. You know, and so again, learning from each other, learning from the younger generation too, in terms of how they use these new tools, which they're digital natives. You know, this is part of what they grew up with.
It came in the DNA.
Yeah, and you know, ultimately, when you go back to you, trust your instincts.
Yeah.
I mean, I have depended on mine my whole life,
Right.
and even if I was standing up alone
Right.
for something, I went back to my instincts. Is this something I've got to do? Is this something that needs to be done? And is this something that I have to do in this time?
Right.
To live with myself and to represent what I believe in, my values, as you mentioned. So, but it's always back to the instinct. I can live with the results of what I'm going to do right now. But you have to be able to recognize that and read it. So you have to your own self, be true. You have to believe in yourself.
If you had to choose your career, if you could choose it again, would it be journalism, perhaps teaching, engineer?
No, I wouldn't change a thing.
You wouldn't change it?
I wouldn't change a thing.
No,
No.
I love it.
No.
Love it.
Yeah. Although
What has
singing,
been the
I
most
might go do
gratifying? Right. What has been the most gratifying?
The most gratifying.
For me, it's all the people I've met, wonderful, great people that are doing things that change life, like meeting Isabel or Susana or all of you, actually, all the people that I meet. That's one of the things you get in journalism, in media. You're meeting so many interesting people that are making a difference.
Absolutely.
Being able to influence, good influence other people. That's what I like the most, is that you can put your granito de arena, your touch in something that is going to be valuable for somebody else.
Oh, absolutely.
Communication is everything. That's what we've been talking about.
So
we have that responsibility to do it right.
So I have covered a prince and a pauper. I've been at attempted assassinations. I have been at assassinations. So there's all kinds of things. One has this deep, broad, rich history. But I think the thing that always stands out in my mind was when a little Mexicano grandfather walked up to me in the parking lot of a grocery store, took my hand and he kissed it, and he said, "You make me proud to be Mexican."
Oh, that's nice.
Wow.
Beautiful.
You see, that's a great memory. You're going to keep that forever.
Forever.
And somebody touched you saying that. That's perfect. I love it.
Yes. And you mentioned that you retired from journalism. Oh,
One never retires from journalism.
No.
One only retires from the workplace. I'm constantly curious. In fact, I've transferred all of those skills from television into my nonprofit. So, one doesn't lose those basic, tangible kinds of skill sets. But I thought 42 years in television was enough. But it was also because I looked at the scene and I realized that I no longer could stop the Titanic from sinking. That it is what it is. It will not be anything anymore that I need it to be for me to be productive in this business. So I said, so it's time for me to take all of that energy and put it into something where I think I can do something of value and where I can have value. And that's why I decided to retire.
wow.
But at least I did it my way.
Exactly. As the song says, right?
So we're going to break into song.
Yeah.
We can. You want to try?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can. Why not? And your website, Isabel?
Oh, for anybody who's interested in our work, www.latinascontracancer.org. And for those who have short memories, just go Latinas and Cancer in Google, and you'll find us.
And you'll find it. Great, great. Well, ladies, I want to thank all of you. Mónica Amador, publisher and co-owner of El Observador. Linda Castillo, founder and publisher of modernlatina.com. Susan St. John Crane, executive director, Create TV. Isabel Duron, journalism and founder of Latinas Contra Cáncer. Claudia Estrada, president and general manager of Estrella TV, Mundo Fox. I've had a wonderful time. What about you, ladies?
Great.
Awesome time.
Right?
Wonderful.
This has been wonderful, and I'm glad we had this conversation. And any other last words that you would like to give to our viewers before we say farewell? We have 30 seconds.
I want to do this again. This was fun.
Let's do it again.
Let's do it again, definitely. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us in this phenomenal community program. Mónica Amador, Linda Castillo, Susan St. John Crane, Isabel Duron, y Claudia Estrada. Thank you very much for being part of this phenomenal community program. And thanks to Create TV. And don't forget, VivaFest in September. For more information, visit vivafest.org. Nos vemos en la próxima. Until next time.